Alright, so I thought I'd do a little bit of a rundown here on my point of sale system, or parts of it anyway. Um, I purchased this system off of eBay a little while ago for far less than it's worth, because the person selling it didn't list a whole lot of info with it. I took a chance on it and got this thing um, for dirt cheap. Um, it is an IBM POS system. This one was manufactured around, I want to say 2001. I'm not certain, since there are manufacture dates on all these parts, but they vary. From somewhere between 99 and 2001, so I assume this whole thing was put together as a kit in 2001. This here is the PC unit. It's a bit narrower than a normal PC. You can see here it has a floppy drive. The power button is over in the corner. This is a lock that is a three-position lock. In the up position, it locks the case and the floppy drive. You can't get it, you can't remove it or insert a disk from the drive. The middle position where it's at now keeps the case locked but unlocks the drive, and turning it to the bottom position unlocks the entire case and allows it to be removed. This is normally protected with a little door, which there's some indicator lights over there. When I got this machine, it didn't have a hard drive in it because it was originally built to act as a diskless terminal and load its operating system over the network remotely. However, since I don't have access to any of the IBM software, very unfortunately, I've had to use Windows instead. So I inserted a hard disk along with a lot more memory. It originally had, I think, 32 megabytes. I upped that to 200 and something so I could get XP to run on it, which it even does that not very gracefully. But fortunately, the software that I've been writing for it is so incredibly simple that even its 500 megahertz processor and 200 some odd meg of memory can more than keep up with it. The other parts of this system are this keyboard, which, as you can see, this is not a standard keyboard. It doesn't have any letters on it. It has a keypad and a number of essentially blank buttons. Each of these buttons contains a label, which is see-through. You can put a paper label and then put it over the button, like so, to give the button a label. And then the function of the button will be defined in whatever software you're using. It has a screen here also, a little LCD screen that's 2 by 20 characters. That is used for operator feedback. In the IBM software, there would be no monitor hooked up to the system, or at the very least the monitor was optional, and the all operator feedback would come in through this screen, and they would type in through the keyboard, and that would be it. It's got some indicator lights. Wait, offline, message pending. Wait just meant that the terminal was busy. Offline meant that this is in the IBM software, keep in mind. Offline meant that the terminal had lost connection, and it's gone out of focus. Come back. Come back. There we are. Meant that the terminal had lost its connection to its controller. Depending on the way the terminal was set up, it would either fail or it could continue to function, depending. Message pending meant that there was a message from the operating system that had come up, but it wasn't displayed on the screen due to the fact that the program was running. There was a key combination you could get at to access the messages. And this fourth light, which is unlabeled, and I don't know what it does. As far as I know, in the IBM software, it doesn't do anything. In Windows, when using Windows software, I was able to write software that I can manually control any of these lights. Back here, it's got a card reader, magstripe reader. Works fairly simply. Not much to be said about that. Doesn't use keyboard emulation, as far as I know, for this. It only works in as what's referred to as an OPOS device, which is kind of how all POS technology talks to to its software. Over here is a lock, a physical lock, and this is the key that goes to it. You put it in here and turn it, and the software can read the state of the lock for whatever purpose to determine whether or not a user is authorized. In the IBM software, it would usually work that for certain operations that a normal cashier would not be allowed to perform, this key would have to be turned to the on position before to allow an operation to go through. Again, when dealing with my Windows software, I can read this the state of this lock for anything I wanted to. Up here is the printer. It's an IBM SureMark TI4 printer. It's a dual station printer, and that's kind of unusual. What it means is there are essentially two printer assemblies inside of this printer. Back here you have a receipt printer that prints thermally onto thermal sensitive paper. I'll do a demonstration with the printer. Like so. And then the front station is a dot matrix printer, and you can see here it's got an opening where paper can be fed in, and it will print onto that paper. It doesn't have any sort of internal paper storage. All the paper will be fed in through here. The primary purpose for this is to process checks. It also has a reader, an MICR reader inside of it that reads the magnetic characters on a check to get the check number and account number and all that. And it can be used for check verification to store it in the system. And then it's got a printer here to print an endorsement on the back of the check. Additionally, it can be used to print onto forms or whatever. The nice thing about it is the side is open, so it can take awkward sized sheets of paper, and I'll demonstrate it in a couple of seconds. Let's see. 105. So I'll have to do a little bit differently. I'm going to use the dot matrix side. Is the printer ready? I'll pop it in there. This is just a regular index card. And that's what you get as a result. This is, like I said, this is a regular index card. It can take pieces of paper of varying sizes and shapes. One of the cool things is it will do, and I will need to find something to demonstrate it with, is it can, if you have something like a check, it can flip it from one side to the other using a kind of strange mechanism. I'm going to use this piece of paper. The index card is too wide, unfortunately, just too wide to work through the flipper. And if I try it, it will jam. But this should work. This piece of paper should be narrow enough. Makes some very interesting noises while it's working. And a lot of times, it worked this time. A lot of times the feeder likes not to work, and when attempting to flip it from one side to the other, it will jam, which is lovely. But most of the time, that doesn't happen. Newer models are way better about doing it than this one. This one jams about 50% of the time. But to be fair, a lot of times I'm giving it pieces of paper that aren't checks, so I suppose maybe that's fair. But it's very efficient. And like you said, you can give it pieces of paper of all sizes. It can hang out the side here, so theoretically you can take even a full-size sheet of paper and print on it. It'd only print on one part of the paper, but it would work nevertheless. Let's see, what else is there to mention about the hardware? I'll get to software that I've been working on in a little bit. Also, I have this. It's a VFD display, intended primarily as a display for the customer. This one didn't come as part of the rest of the system. I got it separately, so it's not IBM. Right now, with my software, and I'll touch on this more later in the next video, it displays the same on both screens. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Additionally, there's this monitor up here. It's rather unceremonious. It's an LCD monitor. It's only 800 by 600 pixels, which is pretty small even for the time it came out. But seeing how it's meant to be a point of sale display. It's, I guess, resolution isn't that huge of a deal. Most of these, I would say 99% of these monitors were touchscreen. This is apparently the one in the whole universe that was manufactured without a touchscreen, as by design. This is just a regular monitor, which was disappointing to find out. It does have some other things. It has a lock in the side of it, exactly the same as the keyboard, and it serves the same purpose. It's read by software. I'm not sure what use that is on a non-touchscreen system, but it's there nevertheless. Additionally, there's a mount point here where a keypad can be optionally attached to the side of it for certain things, but this one was never equipped with that. Curiously, this monitor is powered from the computer itself. You see the computer, and I will show you this, has very unusual USB ports. They are here. They're what are called powered USB. They have additional pins to support the transfer of additional power to USB devices. The cool thing about that is it allows you to connect all these hardware peripherals directly to the computer, and they don't need mains power. That monitor can run off that USB connection alone, as can this printer. The keyboard can, but I don't imagine that requires a whole lot of extra power. The additional pins supply extra power to the devices, but it also has a what I mean to say is it's also compatible with regular USB devices, and you can plug regular devices into those ports. Unfortunately, this has a drawback because all these devices use those powered USB ports. It's difficult to connect these devices to a regular computer. Now, the printer has provisions. There's a plug in the back of it to allow it to accept normal mains power and then a regular USB port instead of the powered USB port, but I don't have any of those connections, and I'm not sure where to find them. USB port's standard, but the power adapter I don't know about. Monitor has the same deal. It connects to the computer through DVI, which is, for the era, very unusual. That time around the turn of the millennium, VGA was still ruling everything, so to have a DVI monitor is kind of a novelty. Let's see, are there any other points to touch on? I don't believe so. This is an overview of the hardware that I have. I've unfortunately, like I said, I have none of the IBM software. I installed Windows on it. So in order to make any of this hardware work, I've had to write my own software to utilize it, since other POS software not designed to work with this hardware. This is pretty much an IBM thing. You can use things like the printer and sometimes the display for customer feedback, but something like this keyboard, most POS software can't use. And it's really a pain in the neck to find any POS software in the year of our Lord 2014 that supports non-touch screens, much less a keyboard such as this. So in a bit I will do another video that will touch on the software that I've created and what it can do so far. But that about wraps up the showcasing of the hardware.